The PPP government on Tuesday presented several amendment bills which were passed by the previous APNU-AFC administration that imposed heavy tax burdens on the public. The bills aim to enhance citizens' quality of life by reducing inequalities, boosting infrastructure, and stimulating the economy in keeping with the manifesto promises. By removing burdensome taxes, the government will put more money in people's pockets, spur new investments, as well as expand traditional sectors. The first bill passed was the Auctioneers Amendment Bill 2020, which was published on September 21, 2020. It was presented by Minister of Public Works Honorable Bishop Juan Edgel and supported by Minister of Public Service Honorable Sonia Parag.
Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to amend the Auctioneers Act, Chapter 9107, by decreasing the license fees to be paid for an auctioneer's license by 50% of the previously increased amount, thereby reducing it from $40,000 to $23,500. And this, we are seeking, sir, to bring this into effect, into operation on October 1st, 2020. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, the increase to $40,000 from a mere $7,000 was done in 2016, which really amounted to a 500% increase. This bill and its effect of the reversal is part of our manifesto promises, because this was one of the draconian increases that was imposed by the APNU-AFC when they were really hurting the ordinary man by the imposition and increases of fees for license. When we left government, sir, in 2015, the fee for the license of an auctioneer was $7,000. When they brought this measure into place in 2016, that is the APNU-AFC, they moved the cost of a license from $7,000, Mr. Speaker, to $40,000. A 500% increase. And Mr. Speaker, I would understand why they are not here today. Because every bill and every motion that will be addressed in this honorable house would basically highlight their insensitive actions and how it hurt the ordinary man. This measure is really a reversal by 50%.
The driving force behind the economy the business community was heavily affected by the imposition of these tax measures. This was no different for auctioneers, who previously prospered on gains or profits from sales. A quick scan of the records at the Guyana Revenue Authority has shown that in 2009, there was one license issued to an auctioneer. In 2020, that has reduced to 0. Now, previous years, you would have had a lot more, but it is just to show that over from 2016, the amendment of the bill, the principal act, that is, Chapter 9107 of the Laws of Guyana, the Auctioneers Act, the amendment of that act by the then Finance Minister, Mr. Winston Jordan, sought to put an exorbitant fee of $40,000 on auctioneers. And the fact that you have 1 in 2019 and 0 in 2020 has shown that over the years, that particular business has deteriorated to 0.
The second bill passed was the Corporation Tax Amendment Bill.
This bill seeks to exempt corporation taxes on private corporate education institutions and private corporate medical health care institutions, whereby it recommends the removal of the 25% of corporation taxes existing on private corporate education institutions and on private corporate medical health care institutions.
This bill is simply the tip of the iceberg of what is to come in the health and education sector. This here, Mr. Speaker, we are simply laying a part of the foundation of a grand plan that we will unfold within the next 5 years for the education and healthcare sector. If you look at tax regimes throughout the Caribbean, Guyana is placed as one of the highest tax rate regimes. The rate of tax is very high. And because of that, Guyana is being shortchanged with new investment, new foreign direct investment over a number of years. The simple reason being is when any investor sits and it looks at as an MPV analysis, or he looks at a business case justification if to go into come into our country to make an investment to carry on business, the tax rate is a disincentive to that investment. So investors stay away from Guyana. By the removal of this 25% on medical institutions operating here, it gives a whole new opening for a whole new set of services.
The next bill to be considered during the morning hours of the 12th sitting was the Hucksters Licensing and Control Amendment Bill of 2020.
I recall debating this bill in its previous dispensation, when everything was taxed. A man walking on foot selling clothes got paid tax. A man peddling his snow cone cards, tax. Mr. Speaker, I remember when we used to go to school, they had something called Badman Latcher. Badam Latcher. The Badam Latcher man got paid tax. Draycart man, tax. So the vendor, the husker, the hustler, whatever you want to call them, the Granger administration, Mr. Speaker, because of the lack of vision, their inability to innovate and to inspire investment, went to the small man who was already struggling and squeezed them by taxes, fees, for licensing. Mr. Speaker, I am proud today, on behalf of the PPPC, keeping faith with the people of Guyana, to come to the House to ask that these hardships be removed. The increase to 62,500, the licensed hucksters, not only led to tax evasion, because if you got to pay 62,500 just for the license, men start ducking from the GRA. It almost encouraged non-compliance and non-licensing. People who want to walk in the straight and the narrow path, ensuring that they are in keeping with what needs to be done, start ducking and hiding because they think too heavy.
Our government is creating opportunities for our people to have more disposable income and thus increasing their spending power. Mr. Speaker, we are aware of the sufferings of people all across this nation. And in urgently addressing these issues, it is critical that we make these changes as early as possible. Hucksters and huckstering, if there is such a word, is part of the Guyanese culture. It doesn't matter whether you live in a low-income community, a middle-income community, or a high-end community. As the Honorable Bishop Wanajil mentioned, all of us are accustomed to hearing the huckster whenever he or she enters our kitchen. Mr. Speaker, many hucksters produce children who are engineers, doctors, lawyers, business executives, and tycoons on that little income. And therefore, the reduction in taxes, very important for these small business people to continue to develop Guyana and the future of Guyana.
Before the first suspension, the Income Tax Amendment Bill was presented and passed.
In 2013, the PPPC introduced this measure, now known as mortgage interest relief, to first-time low and middle-income homeowners, to help them realize their dreams of becoming homeowners. This was intended to move our people from being tenants to being homeowners. This was intended to assist our young professionals to move from being in mommy and daddy's home, shacked up, into being families in units of their own. 2017, the APNU AFC interfered and changed this and moved it from 30 million to 15 million. What they were basically saying was that, certain people should not live and enjoy certain benefits at a certain standard of living. It was the elitist thinking that caused them to reduce the ceiling from 30 million to 15 million. Let's say a potential homeowner takes out a mortgage of 18 million with terms of 30 years at an interest rate of 9.5%, incurring a monthly interest of 85,000 over the life of the loan. An individual earning a monthly income of 150,000 can receive more than 21,000 additional income at their disposal each month. or more than 250,000 each year if they are a first-time home owner.
Excessive taxation and little incentives do not provide the environment for economic growth and improved standard of living. With this new implementation, Mr. Speaker, the monies which people will now be able to save can be used otherwise to improve their lives. For the majority of the people, this means that they will have more money at their disposal to build and complete their homes in a faster time. This will also result in a higher standard of houses built by individuals, as they will now have more money to actually put into the construction of their homes instead of expending it on interest on a mortgage, which is already limited.
Section 6 of the Miscellaneous Licenses Bill was amended to reduce license fees by 50%. The decrease, the Public Works Minister said, will take effect from October 1.
There again, we had a situation where a license that was lost, once you're seeking to get another copy, the fees range between 100% to 500%. And this was among the hundreds of fees imposed in the last 5 years of the previous administration on all licensing fees and charges. And this was another burdensome measure. Section 6 of the Principal Act is amended by substitution for the words $1,500 of the words $850. All of us, for good reasons and sometimes unknown reasons, have had documents misplaced. And in some instances, they're not even really misplaced, but just can't be found at the time when you're looking for them and when they need to be used. And we need to get copies to get on with our lives. And even that was used as an opportunity to garner revenue for a visionless government that lacked the capacity to dream and to bring investment to Guyana and so to grow the economy. So when they implemented these measures, they were drilling further and deeper into the pockets and purses of the Guyanese people.
The Tax Amendment Bill of 2020, which was passed in the National Assembly, saw the reduction of over 100 license fees by 50% of the previously increased amount. Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Honorable Deodat Indar, said the bill has a long-ranging effect on the lives of Guyanese. He said the APNU-AFC administration literally took money out of the ordinary man's pocket.
In my presentation during the budget period, I said that in 2014, under the last PPP government, Guyana took in tax revenues 135 billion only. As of 2019, the last year that was reported under the APNU government, just 4 short years, the APNU government brought into government coffers $226 billion and $91 billion more in revenues taken from household citizenry and brought into government coffers. Mr. Speaker, what that has done is to pauperize the Guyanese. Buying drugs to take to your family when they're sick and so, somebody getting a headache, somebody getting a bellyache. Druggist license. This bill reduces druggist license. The fees to operate a drugstore. This fee, Mr. Speaker, this bill, Mr. Speaker, reduces butcher shop license. Butcher shop license. Imagine butcher shop license is what they increased under the previous government. This bill reduces it. Mr. Speaker, I move forward. Cigarette factory. This bill reduces it. It reduces the fee to operate. It reduces the, Mr. Speaker, when you go around the city, you go around the country, men have a little cart, a little stand, they sell a little cigarette, and they ply their trade. They were increased in terms of fees over the last 5 years. This bill reduces that for them to operate. Mr. Speaker, this bill reduces the pawn shop, the broker, pawn shop brokerage license, licensed traders, sorry, money changers. The money changers, for them to carry on that trade, their fees were increased over the last 5 years. This bill cuts it by half. Mr. Speaker, I move on to craft. Anything craft that you were carrying on, you had to pay a fee. This bill reduces that.
Member of Parliament Honorable Sanjeev Tatadin said small businesses stand to benefit the most from the reduction in fees.
We all know that everyone who has a stall in the market, everyone who has a stall, whether it's in Georgetown, outside of Georgetown, there are fees that are attached to it because services have to be provided. But if you make those fees, Mr. Speaker, prohibitive, if you make those fees so high that for small businesses to succeed, they can't afford it, they're struggling to afford it. What you're doing, Mr. Speaker, is you're taking a viable working entity, a man who is working to support his family, and making him unable to do so. And when he is unable to do that, then you're not only affecting that one man, you're affecting an entire family, and in many cases, in the rural areas, you're affecting extended families. You're affecting employment.
The Value Added Tax Amendment Bill of 2020, the Public Works Minister pointed out, seeks to reverse VAT on export. The minister said it will also afford exporters to reclaim monies expended on production cost.
People must be able, so when they're doing business, to have a playing field that if they had to expend in the input of production, they be able to reclaim that at the appropriate time. So this measure will result in a reduction in the cost of manufacturing. It will make us more competitive, and it will make manufacturing more profitable, thus encouraging more people to enter the market. We want to see expansion across the various sectors. And we know that the private sector, including the manufacturing sector, is a key area for job creation. So, Mr. Speaker, on this particular initiative, I can simply say we offer no apology for stimulating the private sector. We offer no apology. Because the jobs that we are talking about, we have to be able to see the private sector grow so that our young people could be employed, so that there could be real jobs that people are earning significant sums. And manufacturing presents such an opportunity. So the removal of this burdensome VAT on exports and the reclassification that we are talking about would allow for both competition, profitability, and expansion in the manufacturing sector. Mr. Speaker, if I give an example, Supposing an exporter of manufactured items exports 5 million worth of goods, and these cost about 4 million to produce. Out of this 4 million, let us assume that 1 million were non-labor inputs that included 14% VAT. Under the previous administration, this manufacturer would not be able to claim as refund the VAT paid on those inputs. In this example, this would amount to almost $370,000 in unrecoverable costs to this small manufacturer. Whether it's fish, whether it's vegetables, whether it's peppers that have to be packaged, and all the other things that take place, we are creating an environment to encourage manufacturing, to encourage agro-processing, to encourage development, and to grow our export market. And of course, Mr. Speaker, you are fully aware that the more we export, the more foreign currency becomes available to us as a country, and that rebounds to our benefit. So, Mr. Speaker, this simple measure, carefully crafted, carefully thought out, in consultation with the people that are engaged, has now created a new environment and a new playing field to ensure that our manufacturers can grow, they can compete, and that they can be able to reclaim VAT, because we are removing VAT on exports and we're reclassifying this arrangement.
Member of Parliament Honorable Dharam Kumar Siraj echoed similar sentiments, noting that this amendment bill will bring about expansion in the production and manufacturing sectors.
My attention was drawn to a presentation by the then Minister of Finance, Mr. Jordan, when on the 10th of January 2018, there was a debate on the value-added tax amendment bill, bill number 2 of 2017. And this is what the Honorable Minister had to say. And it gives an indication about how, in their desperation, how they were trying to go about garnering as much revenue as possible in the absence of attracting investment that would have given real growth, and in that process, garner more tax for the government. So the minister said, and I quote her, "I want to say immediately that this bill has nothing to do with any new measure per se, and that most of these amendments in this bill are really consequent to the amendments that were made to the Value-Added Tax Act and schedules in Budget 2017. Let me allay any fears that I did not talk about this in my speech, and that we were now introducing measures that seem to be a burden on either the consumer or other stakeholders." End of quote. Sir, I would describe this statement as a sleight of hand by the then minister, because he knew fully well what would have been the impact of these measures on our economy. And we saw it happening all over. And I recall one of the honorable member there, so I think was Holder, in his budget presentation spoke about record-breaking production in rice under the APNU administration. And I said that yes, in 2015 was a record-breaking production, but by 2019 they produced less than that they produced in 2015. If you don't sustain the sector, or all the sectors, if you don't sustain the economy with broad-based fiscal policy or macroeconomic policy, then your economy will falter, and grind to a halt. And then the country will suffer. And then a knee-jerk reaction is to tax the people more. So 200 more plus taxes, you tax the people more, where revenue go up, and then your sector that is supposed to produce and generate wealth continues to shrink. And so, coming out of World War II, the worst military conflict in the world, in our history, where about, I think, 70 to 80 million people died. In war-ravaged Europe, post-World War II, finance ministers around were trying to build back their economy. And you could understand, sir, that you're coming out of a situation where your sector is totally destroyed, infrastructure and all of that, bombed into oblivion. And so the people are trying to garner taxes to stimulate the economy. And Sir Winston Churchill had this to say at that time: I contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself. So you cannot get prosperity by taxation. And what this government is doing, the People's Progressive Party, civic government is doing, is putting into place measures that might reduce your taxes for now, but that are intended to generate more revenue in the future because of expansion in production and productivity, manufacturing and services, and all of that. So this move that is being made here through Bill number 9 of 2020, the Value Added Tax Amendment Bill 2020, is a move in the right direction in keeping with measures outlined in Budget 2020.
The Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Amendment Bill provides exemption from the requirement to register and pay license fees for excavators, bulldozers, and other vehicles used in the mining industry.
It is highly unfortunate that after 5 years of a government of Guyana, we have to come here to restart the reel, to restart the effort to bring Guyana's economy back onto solid footing. That we in the PPPC haven't been dislocated from the job that we were supposed to be doing all the time, have to come back again to restart Guyana on its development path. And I have to say that we are in this position because of the misguided work, of the derailing of our development agenda and program by the government, the APNU, AFC government, which preceded us in this house. Five wasted years is what we have to acknowledge here today, is what we have to try to make up for in a fairly short space of time. If we take away the investments which have been made in respect of oil, if we look at the attacks on the agricultural sector, on rice, on sugar, on the timber industry, and on the mining industry, we have to acknowledge that our economy has been devastated, and it has been devastated largely by regressive taxation policies by the AP and new AFC. And they might think it's no shame in it, but they are not here today. They are not here so that our eyes could meet for, if we could look across at them. They haven't gone to look into the eyes of the children of the sugar industry or the bauxite workers on the Berbice River at Kokwani or in Linden and the Demerara, and in all the communities who suffered during their period in government.
Prime Minister Phillips said the amendment of the bill will ease the burdens imposed by the previous administration in the mining industry and will boost investment.
We need to allocate resources into traditional sectors and also into new and emerging sectors. The world will always need food. So investments logically must go into those areas. And oil resources, of course, is not finite. So at sometime down the road, and given the trust towards renewable and all of that, its importance, as we're seeing right now, will become less and less as the world moves towards addressing greenhouse gases, emissions, and all of these things that contribute towards global warming. It is a matter of survival. And that is why in these slew of measures that and bills that we are discussing today, mechanisms and systems are being put in place administratively and otherwise to give that the kind of support that the different sectors needs to build a platform and to expand on. And taxes are important, yes, but it's how you go about collecting it and how you plan. And you don't plan for next week or next year. You know, the 5 years, the 10 years plan and further down the road. And we cannot afford to operate like the PNC to come once there is a deficiency somewhere, you tax the people double. Now, if you're unable to produce even at original rates, how is it that you're going to expand by the doubling of those rates? And we fully well recognizes the implication of taxing people too much. You know, some governments seem to think that, you know, if it moves, you tax it. If it keeps moving, you regulate it. And if it stops moving, then you should subsidize it. Well, it was moving under the PPP. Then it continued to move a little bit under the PNC, and then they tax it more, and then they try to regulate it, and then they regulate it out of existence. So now we have to give back the kind of support that is needed. And this is a small measure that will go towards addressing the cost of acquisition of new machinery in the forms of these excavators and bulldozers and other heavy-duty machinery. Because if you hold on to a piece of equipment or machinery for too long, then the cost to keep it going keeps climbing and climbing. And if you tax the acquisition of new machinery overly too much, then producers are forced to stay with the old pieces of equipment, which becomes a burden not only to them, but also to the country. Because all our spare parts and all the things that go towards making them work must be imported. There is a foreign exchange cost to that. And if you don't export, you cannot earn foreign exchange. And if you continue to use up all your foreign exchange to go after spare parts, and you're prohibited because of these taxes from acquiring new pieces of machinery and equipment, then you're in a circle that you will never be able to get out of. And this government, through measures like these, that is in this bill, Bill number 10 of 2020, where we're seeking to remove the need for these machines to be registered for license and all of that, will give a break to the sector itself.
The bills were all passed in the National Assembly without the input of the APNU-AFC coalition members of parliament, who chose to stay away from the 13th sitting.